His eye was injured very badly in that clash. Mr. Rajiv Khosla, one of the prominent lawyers in Delhi, he has been the member of Bar Council of Delhi as well. And many lawyers were hurt in the process through the water cannons.
Welcome to another episode of Legally Speaking with Rest the Case, where we break down complex legal issues and the impact in the society. So today's topic, I think, is very interesting and not much spoken about, which is strikes, lawyers striking. And strikes are a common tool which is usually used by professionals, but this is somewhat of a controversial topic when it comes to lawyers, I think. So, first of all, welcome to today's podcast and welcome Advocate Saurabh Sharma, who has now become a recurring guest on our podcast. He's a legal expert who has closely observed the judiciary and the legal profession. So, today we're going to explore instances of lawyer strikes, their reasons, and whether there are other alternatives to make their voices heard. So, the first question then I would like to address to you, Advocate Sharma, is that the concept of striking is common in many professions, but when it comes to lawyers, it's kind of seen as a controversial topic. It's frowned upon, or there are ethical and legal concerns which are, mentioned. So, what is your view on that?
First of all, thank you for having me here. And as far as strike is concerned, the word strike is not in any of the law lexicons or Oxford dictionaries in connection with a lawyer.
Right.
It is in connection with trade unions, with workers who go on strike to ensure hike in their wages. But it is very loosely used in reference to lawyers as well. We can say they boycott, we can say they abstain from work, but strike is not the correct word, though it is loosely used by lawyers themselves. And it is very controversial because the plight of the litigants is always highlighted by the media when the lawyers go on strike, so to say. But I would tell you, none of the office bearers of the bar associations or the bar councils or any single advocate wants to go on a strike or abstain from work. Because there are lawyers who are hand to mouth, who earn on daily basis from fresh filings and daily hearings. So none of the lawyers want to go on strike until and unless the issue concerns are so major that there is no other resort left to be done.
So we were talking earlier, and we were talking about how there was a recent strike that happened.
Yes.
So what are the main issues which lawyers tend to strike on? As you were saying that they don't strike if they have to, but
Yes.
what are these issues which are making them go on strikes?
There are various issues. First and foremost is the dignity of a professional. If some authority, it may be a policeman, it may be a newly appointed high-handed judicial officer, who disrespects an officer of the court, that is a lawyer, or goes outside his jurisdiction, or does anything which is high-handedness, then there are occasions when lawyers have been on strike. Apart from that, when there is lack of infrastructure, any new court buildings is appointed, it is constructed, and there are less number of chambers, or there are not proper sanitation or facilities for lawyers, there are no bar rooms, then lawyers go on strike. If there is bifurcation of the jurisdiction of various courts, like in Delhi, as of now, I guess there are 12 district courts now in Delhi itself. So each and every time it was bifurcated, there were protests by the lawyers. And apart from that, even for public causes, like in the Nirbhaya case, the lawyers were the foremost people who had come to protest on the roads. So these are some of the occasions when lawyers go on strike.
So how does the Supreme Court and High Court view lawyer strikes? So in the Krishnakant Karmakar versus State of Madhya Pradesh, that was one judgment where they laid down and gave their judgment on that. So if you can explain to us what they said and what is your take on it.
Well, the Supreme Court and High Courts have always accounted for the plight of the litigants, as well as the time of the judiciary should not be wasted. That is the prime most concern of the judiciary. So they have always held that strikes by lawyers are illegal. They do not appreciate it. They have always gone even to say that if a lawyer holds a wakalatnama of a client, he should appear irrespective of the strike or no strike. So that is their take.
Right. So if you say it's illegal, what legal actions can be taken against them?
Look, strike as a term is often misrepresented, it is misconstrued. Abstaining from work doesn't mean that lawyers become violent. In remote circumstances, like in the year 1998, I guess, in Delhi, there were mass protests against the commissioner, Miss Kiran Bedi. At that time, water cannons were used by the police, tear gas shells were used by the police. So, in retaliation, the lawyers became violent. There were destruction of public property. And in such cases, there are cases of contempt, there are cases of FIRs against the lawyers. Otherwise, merely for protesting against an action, if it is a peaceful protest, the lawyers are not held liable for any offense.
So they are not usually also held liable if they.
Yes. If it is a peaceful protest and nobody is harmed, there are no actions taken.
And so when we come to this, where the Supreme Court, frowns upon lawyers protesting, what is the middle ground here, where the lawyers' demands can be heard without the Supreme Court frowning upon it or having an issue with it? What is your take on that?
Look, strike is the last resort that a lawyer goes to. Firstly, they also approach the authorities. They make representations. And if despite the representations, no action is taken by the authorities, or they do not withdraw their actions, they do not withdraw their orders which are against the lawyers, only then they go on a strike. So the alternate is always, the first step is to make representation to the authorities by which the lawyers are aggrieved.
So having voices heard through a mechanism where they can already have people who they can go to who will speak for them would be a better mechanism. Right?
No. What I mean is that, say for example, recently there was the Advocates Act Amendment Bill 2025. There were certain provisions which were not just against the lawyers, they were against natural justice as well. Government wanted its representation in the bar council bodies. So it would have ensured that there would be no litigation against the government by the lawyers, which should not be encouraged. Therefore, the lawyers went on strike. There were provisions holding the lawyers criminally liable for strike, for going on strike. So no representation was there, but the government had called for representation and suggestion by the stakeholders. That is why the lawyers went on strike, and ultimately the government had to withdraw its bill. So that is the process.
Because I would also imagine it kind of goes is in conflict with our right as citizens to protest.
Yes.
And lawyers are also citizens.
Yes. The lawyer is here to protect the rights of the common people. If a lawyer cannot protect his own interest, then what kind of a lawyer is he? What faith does the litigant have on his lawyer?
Exactly. And then how are they supposed to think about their litigants and their good and fight for them?
Certainly.
So right now, how you were talking about the case where the police had to be involved and it had gotten violent. So are there any such significant cases where strikes have gone on for very long, or it's been a memorable or something that is written down in history? Are there any strikes like that?
Yes, the most infamous or famous strike in Delhi was the one which involved Miss Kiran Bedi, and I guess it went for about 6 months, and many lawyers were hurt in the process through the water cannons. Mr. Rajiv Khosla, one of the prominent lawyers in Delhi, he has been the member of Bar Council of Delhi as well. His eye was injured very badly in that clash.
Right.
Yes.
So, if the Supreme Court deems strikes as illegal, what do you think needs to be done moving forward by the judiciary to make sure that advocates' voices are heard, and so that these strikes don't happen?
Look, it's not that the judiciary is against the lawyers.
Yeah.
That should not be the picture portrayed by Supreme Court's decision. The decision of the Supreme Court and the High Courts is only in concern of the litigants, that their time and money should not be wasted. A poor litigant should not have to spend 2 decades to get justice. That is the prime concern of the Supreme Court. So the judges also take care of the lawyer's interest. If any order is passed against a lawyer, or there is any unlawful arrest of a lawyer, there have been cases where bar associations have approached the Honorable Chief Justice or the district judge, and they have intervened and helped the bar there. Yes, it is vice versa. Even in cases where a judge is wrongly posted or transferred, or his jurisdiction is wrongly changed, then bar associations have gone strike in aid of the judges also, and they have helped the judges also get their rights enforced.
So, what is then your personal take on this? Do you think lawyer strikes are necessary for reform, or do you think we can do without them?
Look, as I said, none of the lawyers want a strike. It is the last resort. There are cases in high courts when people wear black or red bands to protest. There are peaceful protests. It is only in the rarest of the rare case when there are clashes with the authorities and the dignity of a lawyer is not respected, then only lawyers resort to strike, and then it is quite a necessity.
Correct. So, what would your advice be to, say, young lawyers who are just entering the profession, to make sure that their voices are heard? What would you say in terms of that?
Look, each and every new lawyer should firstly get enrolled with the local bar association, so that he is a part of the organization, to which is his voice. They can only say their message through the bar association, through the president, through the secretary. Secondly, they should be well versed with the Advocates Act and the Bar Council of India Act, as well as the rules, because there only the rules, how a lawyer should conduct himself, the rules are laid down in those acts. So a new lawyer should be well versed with them.
Recently, I was speaking to a very young advocate and he was not aware of a lot of the guidelines laid down or the code of conduct. And I was quite surprised to know that. I would imagine that that's something that all advocates should know. And I think it's very important for them to know that. And so, where can lawyers, like you said, I think that's one place to search about and stay informed about what are the rights and ethical responsibilities of the profession. So where can lawyers or law students?
Well, these days law ethics are a part of law curriculum as well. So law students learn them in the law college itself. But apart from there also they teach the Advocates Act as well as the Bar Council of India rules only. From there only they can learn the ethics.
And so I think we have had a very good discussion about strikes and the importance, if you should have them, if you should not have them. Any closing thoughts you have on this topic?
Well, my closing thought is again a repetition of what I said earlier, that none of the members of the fraternity want a strike. They do not want abstinence from the work. They are also in consonance with the litigant. They want them to benefit, because earlier, because actually the system in force will work smoothly only if the litigants are benefited, because the very institution of the courts is there to attain justice for the litigants. So no lawyer wants a strike, but it is only when the dignity of a lawyer, a professional, is hurt, then only they have to resort to it.
I think with that we can end today's podcast. I think it was a very eye-opening discussion. I saw a very new perspective to strikes, and I think we have a very balanced view from the lawyer side also, and from the litigant side, and the judiciary and Supreme Court
I
side.
tried.
And I think it was very good because it was a balanced discussion. So everyone's kind of right in their place, but we also need to make sure that everyone's voices are heard. So I think with that we come to end today's podcast episode. Thank you so much again, Advocate Chandra,
Thank you.
for
Thank
being
you.
here, for taking time out. And thank you so much to our audience for listening. And we will be back soon with another episode. Thank you so much.